Homai tēnei pō. Mr Chair, I'm pleased to take a call on the Education Polytechnics Amendment Bill on behalf of the Māori Party, and simply to say, sir, that you may be aware of the President of the Māori Party, Professor Whatarangi Winiata. He's a sort of, he's the sort of person who sort of tries to look at everything in a positive light, that he seldom gets angry, and that he tends to look for the good in everything that's going. And we of the Māori Party are very, very, very much like that. So at the second reading of this bill, sir, while we had some concerns about, in particular, some of the matters raised by Labour Party members about Māori representation, we spoke to those in the view that down the line there might be a possibility of addressing the issues that I raised in the second reading speech. And in that regard, I signalled at the time that we were looking to put up an SOP, which is on the table, for the House to consider, that might move towards addressing just that. I do want to apologise to the Honourable Trevor Mallard and acknowledge the offer made. We did attempt to move in that direction, but unfortunately trying to deal with the parliamentary wording that we wanted didn't quite match up, and so the SOP doesn't quite fulfil everything we wanted, but it's as close as we'd probably ever get as within the realms of, I suppose, the constraints of the parliamentary process. So I acknowledge the point that's made and I apologise for that. I'll say that again? Can you get Tohanari to vote for it? Oh, well, we'll leave Mr Henare to himself for that one. But I do acknowledge the point that's been made. Mr Chair, I think I tried to make in the second reading that, like representation in many parts of our democracy, historically, when it comes to Māori representation, and the ability of tangata whenua to have an input at the top table of decision making, the chances are very thin. We had that whole debate throughout the Auckland Super City discussion, and even with regards to health boards, local body elections, as I say, it's very, very difficult for Māori to find a space on decision-making bodies. And usually what happens is we fall back on, I suppose, those people who we might call culturally aware, culturally safe, who provide that view for Māori them, that at least puts our hand in there to try and find that space. Some institutions, they go as far as having advisory boards, but as Dr Sharples alluded to in the Auckland City debate, this is at the second tier of decision making, and we're past that, we say. So Māori representation we want to talk about at least, comes from a treaty perspective, from a treaty right. Now, often people ask, sir, how do we implement the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi? Well, we had the answer. We had the answer. That is, to have a bicultural model that recognised Māori representation on polytechnic councils, and our SOP goes in that sort of direction. And we look forward, hopefully, to the support of the House to that particular move. The Māori experience is that we cannot rely on clauses, however, like it is desirable or acknowledge special status. Can't do that. We can't rely on those sorts of clauses, special status of Māori, because it does not address the constitutional significance of the treaty in any debate around Māori representation. So our SOP tries to set up a process by firstly making the space on the council, and you see the SOP divided into sort of two areas. One named the Constitution of Polytechnic Councils, which is, as I say, trying to find that space there. And the second part, sir, is around how appointments are made. And so I hope members will take time to have a look at that. And I think the key wording that we put in here was that we've suggested that it must include at least 3 members, which is our pitch at least trying to work very hard, as I say, to find that Māori space on those councils. I can say that we have heard about the desire of some to have student representation on the councils, and again, our SOP has moved towards that direction in addressing that. So the new questions, there are some questions that we'd like to sort of put up, and I suppose it follows on from some of the debate that we had with Tairāwhiti Polytechnic, whom I believe provided some discussion to the Select Committee. Tairāwhiti says that they're okay with regards to their model right now. Why? Because they've got a heap of Māori living on the East Coast, that's why. So they find their space at the Polytechnic Council table. And then Waiariki, at the Waiariki Institute of Technology, they say they supported this model. Indeed, they provided the basis of our submission. Mr Chair,
Kia ora.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, they provided the basis of a paper that I provided to the Minister, which is hopefully to be, or was supposed to be, the basis of a model from the Select Committee, but also, in fact, to move to a new paradigm about our recognition and representation against the treaty model. So we put that up, and I suppose it's all going to be tested this afternoon when we get to the voting about the SOP. Because at the end of the day, our view is if we can't get to that model, then the rest is history. The rest is history. So that might give some answer to the Honourable Trevor Mallard. But the good thing is that against all putting these models up, some might say it's too hard. You've got to be brave to take these huge decisions about having equal representation of Māori. That's a huge ask, Mr. Chair, in this day and age. But strangely enough, John Key was brave enough because he said, oh, Peter Sharple's going to ask your people about this issue about a Māori flag. Because even though the country might get a little bit upset about it, let's be brave enough to put it out there and ask the question. So he did. But the point, while those people are going on about it over there, sir, the point I'm making is at least people were brave enough to put it out there, unlike some. So we'll come to that. So in wrapping up, sir, where to from here, sir? That's the question. So here it is. It's quite simple. We have an SOP, and if it's not passed, then obviously in good conscience, we cannot support the remaining stages of the bill. That's pretty straightforward. Aside from that, the Māori Party will be working alongside the Minister in terms of our arrangement with the National Party to find a way forward. It might not necessarily reach the height that we want, but nevertheless, that's what happens when you're in a small party and you're in a relationship. And it's better than sitting on the opposite side of the fence where you can't say anything and you can't do anything. That's where we are at the moment. So we'll come to that. But Mr. Chair, I didn't want to go against my colleagues over there. So just referring to the SOPs from Marion Street, I can say that there is that we are prepared to look at her SOP as the voting goes, because it certainly addresses some of the issues that we want. It doesn't go all the way, but it certainly does come in line with some of the things that we wanted to put on the table with regards to our model. And as I say, the Māori Party will continue to forcefully push for that treaty right at the representation tables across the board over our period of government. Of that, you can be sure.